Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at leadership.
Okay.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at this book by Robert J. Anderson and William A. Adams. It's called Mastering Leadership.
Okay.
And we're really going to dig into what they have to say about how leaders can transform themselves and how they can transform their organization.
Right.
And one of the things I thought was really fascinating about this book is that it's not just for like CEOs or executives or,
Right.
it's really applicable to anyone in any role who wants to step up and make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's about leading from wherever you are.
Yeah.
And the authors really challenge us to think differently about what organizations are looking for in their leaders.
I love that. And they start off by talking about this idea of the promise of leadership.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was a really powerful way to frame it. It's like this set of expectations, right, both spoken and unspoken.
Yeah, like a contract almost.
Yeah, a contract, like a real agreement between leaders and their teams.
Definitely. An unwritten agreement that goes beyond just, hitting those numbers every quarter.
Right. And I actually thought about that when I was reading that section of the book because, I've had jobs where I felt like I was completely disconnected from the bigger picture.
Sure.
I was just going through the motions, and it was really demotivating.
Yeah, I've been there.
So what are some things that leaders can do to avoid that trap and really fulfill that promise of providing direction and meaning?
Well, they talk about two key promises that leaders are expected to keep.
Okay.
First is providing direction and meaning.
Okay.
So that involves creating a clear vision, developing strategies that align with that vision. If you don't know where you're going, how can you possibly lead anyone else there?
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But how do you actually translate that vision into something tangible?
Yeah, so that's where fostering a culture with shared values comes in.
Okay.
And it's about creating a sense of purpose, a shared understanding of what the organization stands for and why the work matters.
Okay.
When people feel connected to something bigger than themselves, they're more likely to be engaged.
Yeah.
And motivated to come to work every day.
Right. So it's not just about setting goals. It's about creating a sense of meaning.
Totally.
And purpose.
Yeah.
What about that second promise that they talk about, engaging every stakeholder? How do you actually make sure everyone feels like their work matters?
Yeah. It's not enough for the leader to just believe in their team.
Right.
They have to show it.
Okay.
By connecting individual contributions to the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone can see how their work is contributing to the overall success of the organization.
It's like everyone has their own little piece of the puzzle.
Exactly.
And the leader helps them see how it fits into the whole.
Yeah, and leaders who excel at this make sure everyone understands how their role contributes to the shared goals, and they celebrate those individual successes along the way.
So think about a time when you felt truly valued at work. What did your leader do to create that feeling?
It's funny you should ask that because I remember this one time I gave a presentation and my manager, he pulled me aside afterwards and he specifically mentioned how my data analysis that I had done had really strengthened the team's argument.
Oh, wow.
And it was a small thing, but it made me feel so seen and so valued.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
It's about taking the time to recognize those individual contributions and connecting them to the bigger picture.
Totally.
It's not just about, praising people. It's about giving them opportunities to grow and develop.
So fulfilling this promise of leadership is about so much more than just like giving orders or setting targets. It's about inspiring people and motivating them, empowering them.
Absolutely. And the book argues that this responsibility doesn't just fall on the shoulders of the CEO.
Right.
They talk about the importance of the entire extended leadership team, or ELT.
So ELT meaning everyone who's in a managerial role. That's right. Not just the top boss.
Okay.
And they highlight this really interesting finding that high-performing organizations tend to have much more effective ELTs.
Okay, that makes sense. You have a whole team of strong leaders, and it creates this ripple effect across the whole organization.
Yeah.
But what makes an ELT effective?
Well, one surprising factor is the quality of their conversations.
Really?
Yeah, the book argues that the conversations that are happening within leadership teams are actually often the key to their success or failure.
So you're not just talking about strategy meetings or presentations. You're talking about just the way they're communicating with each other.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about the depth of their discussions, their willingness to challenge each other, their ability to have honest, open dialogues.
But isn't there a risk that those conversations get kind of dumbed down in a group setting?
Yeah.
People are afraid to rock the boat. So they just kind of go along with whatever the most senior person says.
You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what the book calls dumbing down. And it can be a real obstacle to effective leadership.
So how do you combat that?
Well,
How do you create a culture where leaders feel safe to actually speak their minds and challenge each other?
um, it starts by creating a space where vulnerability isn't seen as a weakness, but as a strength.
So we're talking about psychological safety, like
Yeah.
people feeling comfortable to take risks to share their true thoughts and feelings.
Exactly. And it starts at the top.
Yeah.
Leaders need to model that vulnerability.
Okay.
Be willing to admit their mistakes, ask for help when they need it.
It's like that saying, vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome.
That's a great quote. And so true. When leaders show up authentically, it gives other people permission to do the same.
Yeah.
Creates a ripple effect through the whole organization.
And it can lead to some really powerful conversations.
Oh, yeah.
The kind that can really spark innovation and drive change.
Absolutely.
But creating that kind of culture is easier said than done right. Because there's this whole tension between playing it safe and leading with purpose that can make it really hard to speak up and challenge the status quo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a tension that every leader grapples with.
Yeah.
This constant push and pull between wanting to protect ourselves and wanting to make a real difference.
Right.
And it shows up in, the choices we make,
Yeah.
both big and small.
It's like that voice in your head. Do I speak up and risk being seen as a troublemaker, or do I just keep my head down?
Yeah, that's the dilemma. And the book outlines two different leadership styles that kind of emerge from this tension.
Okay.
So on the one hand, you've got reactive leadership,
Okay.
which is driven by fear of failure. These leaders prioritize stability, avoid taking risks, going along with the crowd even when they disagree.
Right. So they're more focused on protecting their position
Yeah.
than on, pursuing some bold vision.
Right. It's understandable,
Yeah.
but it can also be very limiting.
Yeah, for sure. Then on the other hand, you have creative leadership,
That's exactly.
which is driven by that sense of purpose, a willingness to challenge the status quo.
Totally. These are the leaders who make bold decisions, drive positive change, not afraid to kind of shake things up a little bit.
Those are the visionaries,
Yeah,
the ones that kind of inspire us to think differently,
exactly.
strive for something more.
Yeah. And while the book ultimately advocates for a more integrated approach to leadership,
Okay.
I think it's important to acknowledge that both of these styles have strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, you're not saying that one is good and one is bad.
Right.
It's just about understanding the context,
Totally.
choosing the approach that's best for that particular situation.
Absolutely. Sometimes you need that steady hand and a focus on stability.
Yeah.
Other times you need bold leadership and a willingness to take risks.
So it's really about being self-aware,
Yes.
recognizing your own tendencies, being adaptable enough to adjust your style
Exactly.
as needed.
One of the things I really appreciated about this book is how they weave personal anecdotes into their analysis.
Yeah, I love that.
It really makes these concepts come to life.
Yeah, and relatable.
Yeah.
You feel like you're having a conversation with the authors.
Totally. Like that story about the leader who realized he wasn't becoming himself in his job.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. I think we've all had those moments where we felt like we were living someone else's life.
Yeah,
Like following a path that wasn't truly our own.
totally. It's a common experience,
Yeah.
especially in the workplace. We get so caught up in meeting expectations, climbing that ladder, that we can lose sight of our own values.
And it leads to that feeling of emptiness, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just going through the motions.
And we were on autopilot.
Totally.
And the book suggests that one of the keys to breaking free from that autopilot is to kind of embark on a journey of self-discovery.
Okay.
They use the metaphor of the hero's journey,
Oh, I love that.
which is such a powerful framework for understanding leadership development.
I've always thought of that in the context of myths and legends.
Right.
Like, how does that apply to leadership in the real world?
Well, think about the stages of the hero's journey, right?
Okay.
You start by leaving the familiar village, venturing out into the unknown,
Yeah.
facing challenges, ultimately returning home transformed.
Right.
And in the context of leadership, that village could represent our comfort zone,
Okay.
the way we've always done things.
So leaving the village means stepping outside of that comfort zone,
Exactly.
challenging the status quo, being willing to take some risks.
Yeah. It might involve questioning assumptions, experimenting with new approaches, or even speaking up when you see something's not right.
Right.
And along the way, you're likely to face challenges and setbacks.
Of course.
You might experience self-doubt,
Sure.
encounter resistance. You might even fail.
It's all part of the journey.
But those trials are essential for growth.
Yeah.
They force us to confront our limitations, learn from our mistakes, and develop resilience.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And through those trials, we emerge transformed.
Right.
We gain new insights. We develop new skills. We strengthen our resolve.
And that transformation allows us to lead more effectively, inspire others, make a real difference. It's about more than just achieving success. It's about becoming the best version of ourselves.
Totally. And the book even goes a step further and suggests that the ultimate goal of leadership development is to achieve what they call integral leadership.
Integral leadership. What is that?
Yeah, so it's about integrating both those reactive and creative leadership styles,
Okay.
recognizing that each approach has its place, and the most effective leaders can kind of move fluidly between the two.
So it's not about choosing one over the other.
Right.
It's about harnessing the strengths of both.
Exactly. Integral leaders are able to bridge the gap between those who prefer stability and those who thrive on change. Communicate effectively with all types of leaders. Foster a culture of collaboration and innovation.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
How do they actually manage to do that?
Well, they embrace the tension
Okay.
between those reactive and creative approaches, see it as a source of dynamism and growth.
Okay.
Understand that different situations call for different leadership styles. Sometimes you need to be decisive, assertive. Other times you need to be more collaborative,
Right.
empathetic.
It's about being adaptable,
Yeah.
responsive to the needs of the moment.
Exactly. And the book suggests that integral leaders also undergo another kind of transformation,
Oh.
which is shifting from a focus on personal vision to what they call servant leadership.
Oh, yes. Moving beyond that what do I want mentality
Yeah.
and embracing the what does everyone else need perspective.
Exactly. Integral leaders prioritize the needs of the organization and its stakeholders.
Yeah.
Become stewards of the collective good.
It's a powerful shift in mindset.
Mm.
It's about putting the needs of the whole above your own personal ambitions.
Totally.
But that requires a deep understanding of the organization's systems, right?
Absolutely. Integral leaders are systems thinkers. They see the interconnectedness of all the different parts of the organization and how they influence one another.
Okay.
They're able to analyze those systems, identify areas for improvement, and make decisions that benefit the whole.
So it's not just about being charismatic or having a grand vision. It's about having the knowledge and the skills to navigate complex systems, make decisions that actually drive sustainable success.
Yeah. And you know what I find interesting is that we often talk about leadership in terms of these outward actions, setting goals, motivating teams. But this book really emphasizes the importance of this inner work as well.
Yeah, the inner transformation.
Yeah, and they dive into this idea of courageous, honest conversations as a tool for both personal and organizational transformation.
They use that analogy of bathroom talk versus boardroom talk,
Yeah.
which I love. It's like when you're just hanging out with colleagues,
Yeah.
you're much more likely to have those really authentic conversations.
Think about like when you're chatting with colleagues in the break room or something, you're probably more willing to share your honest opinions, your frustrations, your dreams.
Versus when you're in a more formal setting,
Right.
you kind of put on that professional mask and you're afraid to say anything that...
You don't want to rock the boat.
Exactly.
And the book argues that real change, both within ourselves and within our organizations, happens when we bring that bathroom talk authenticity into the boardroom.
So it's about having those tough conversations,
Yeah.
addressing conflict constructively,
Mm-hmm.
being willing to challenge those assumptions.
Absolutely. Even our own assumptions.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like that takes a lot of trust,
It does.
a lot of vulnerability.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that's where the concept of servant leadership comes in. You know, these integral leaders understand that their role is not to be served, but to serve.
Mm-hmm.
They prioritize the needs of their team, the organization as a whole.
So it's that shift from what do I want to what does everyone else need?
Exactly. And it requires a deep understanding of the organization's systems, the interconnectedness of all the different parts.
So they're not just figureheads, they're systems thinkers.
Yeah, they can analyze those complex situations and make decisions that benefit the whole.
And they're not afraid to rely on their intuition along with the data.
Data and reason are important, but sometimes our intuition can guide us in ways that our rational minds just can't comprehend.
It's like that gut feeling.
Exactly.
Like you just know something is right
Yeah.
or wrong, even if you can't explain it.
And the book encourages us to cultivate that sense.
Okay.
To listen to that inner voice.
Yeah.
Have the courage to act on it.
I love that. So we've talked about a lot of really powerful concepts today. It's clear that mastering leadership is about so much more than just learning a set of skills.
It's a journey.
It's a journey of self-discovery, a transformation that happens both internally and externally.
It's about embracing our full potential as leaders.
If our listeners could take away just one thing from this conversation, what would it be?
I think I'd want them to remember that leadership is not about a title or a position. It's a way of being.
I love that.
It's about showing up authentically, serving others, and having the courage to lead with purpose, even when the path ahead is uncertain.
So well said. And for those who want to dive deeper into these ideas, we highly recommend checking out Mastering Leadership by Robert J. Anderson and William A. Adams. It's an incredible roadmap for anyone who aspires to lead with integrity and impact.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into leadership.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep leading with purpose.